I think people, what they don't know about audit and what I like about audit, and I really liked that in my early years at PwC, is that you basically start with 250, 300 other people from the same age. It's kind of a continuity of university.
Do you have any advice for people who are maybe starting their careers?
Then I would probably say be curious, because I think being curious is a great thing. That means that you want to learn, that you want to understand, the environment you're living in.
Hi, Julien. Welcome to the Casual Side. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very happy to have you here. So, Julien, you're an audit director here at PwC Luxembourg, and you work in the asset and wealth management industry. And you've also been with PwC since 2014, where you were first hired as an associate, so a junior level position. Why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself and your path, how you arrived at PwC?
Yeah, sure. So I'm born and raised in Belgium, pretty much an hour and 20 minutes from Luxembourg. I grew up in a restaurant, so was helping my parents, at the restaurants and stuff. I was not really in the finance industry. And then at university, I went to a business school. I finished my degree there. And then I wanted to do another master degree. It was too late. It was August. Didn't find a second master degree. And I needed a job. A friend of mine told me, you should apply to PwC. I said, I don't want to do audit and I don't want to go to Luxembourg. But I applied. I got the job. So I think I applied on Monday, got the interview on Wednesday. And on Friday, I got back home with a contract. So pretty happy with that. I started as a new joiner, and then kind of was promoted as a senior after 2 years. Then was a bit wanted some change. 2 years in my senior role, and I applied to go abroad for a secondment. That has been approved, and then I went 3 years in secondment in Australia at the Sydney office. Then I came back pretty much 4 years ago here as a manager. And then got promoted as a director a year ago, and continue my journey within PwC, doing different stuff. So as you said, I started in the asset management practice, and then I touched like all the stuff. I've been like auditing forest, for example, and other stuff.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Now I have a lot of questions in my mind, but the first one that came was, you grew up in the restaurant. What do you mean? Like your parents owned a restaurant? Do you miss it?
So my parents, I had a hotel restaurant. So I don't miss working over the weekend to help them, but I do miss being surrounded by people. And I think that's part of who I am. It's, being surrounded by people from different nationalities, talking different languages. Meeting every day new people, right? And so you get a sense of socialize.
And have you found something similar in your career? Because you stayed in the end in audit that you didn't want. So we'll come back to that. Did you find something like it here?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the continuity, right? Because, I also went to Erasmus and there you really discover multi-nationalities, intercultural, cultural, and those kind of stuff, right? And so I think moving to PwC, we have more than 90 nationalities here, and you also in this environment, with a lot of different people coming from different backgrounds, and that's really something that probably I have since I'm a kid, and I still enjoy working here.
Yeah, that's really incredible. It's one of my favorite parts, I think, from when I started working here, because it's crazy. I didn't expect it, and then you actually meet people from really all over the world. So you said that you didn't want to work in audit and you didn't want to work in Luxembourg. What changed? And I assume something happened that made you start liking audit, and why you decided to stay in Luxembourg.
I think there are a lot of people, especially when they are at university, audit has a reputation, you work a lot, those kind of stuff, and audit doesn't have a good reputation. I think people, what they don't know about audit and what I like about audit, and I really liked that in my early years at PwC, is that you basically start with 250, 300 other people from the same age. It's kind of a continuity of university, only surrounded by young people, and you keep learning. It's on a daily basis. You keep learning. You have trainings, but also on a day-to-day, which is really something that I love. Another thing is, you really have work perspective. You have a lot of responsibilities pretty quick. And I think that's really interesting because, you change what you do over the years. And I feel like it like juggles your brains and it helps, for me, it's really something that I'm looking in a job is to be challenged mentally. So.
Okay. And so learning, what have you been learning recently? And you mentioned that you got promoted to that director role a year ago.
Yeah.
So how was it different? How is it different to be a director than the other positions that you've had? And maybe what is something that you've been learning throughout this year?
So I guess the big difference is that, more and more when you get promoted, when you go up, you're less and less in the operations and in the audit per se. I think what really changed moving to the director is being less in the operation, meaning more spending time with the client, more strategic, more in those like leadership role and conversation, meaning who do I want to be? How do I want to manage my team? How do I want to approach my client? What value do I want to bring to my client? And I think it's super interesting because you kind of move from, I need to deliver that audit to I'm a trusted advisor of my teams, but also my client. And I think it's really fulfilling.
Okay. So talking about leadership, I remember when we were talking before, you mentioned this leadership part and that you were involved in a training for leadership, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? What do you think of leadership styles? What are you applying with your team? Maybe what have you learned with PwC?
Yeah. No, I think that's when you are a director, and I think even before as a manager, when you deal and manage teams, I think it's really important that you understand what is important for you, right? So one of the stuff that we learned during those trainings is what are my values, and based on those values that you identify that are pretty personal, right? Then you are thinking, who do I want to be as a leader? How are people looking at me? Which legacy will I leave as a leader? And so, those trainings are really, thinking about that, and then what impact do I want to have on the people? If I take an example, what I discovered in this training is that I'm basically a leader who really want to get involved with people, meaning develop themselves, making sure that they progress and they learn in a healthy environment, that the well-being is also something important. I think it's important to kind of step back and understand, what impact you wanna have.
So how do you translate that with your team? Like, is there any example that you can share that you do on the day-to-day with your team on how that transfers to them?
Yeah, I guess it's spending time with them. It's to, understand what are your challenges on a day-to-day basis. There are certain moments, it's, okay, guys, we have a project we need to deliver, but it's also important to understand, what's the family situation, what is your passion? Like, I love running, right? So for me, it's important to go running or to do like sport on a daily basis. If that's the same for someone else, you need to give them the possibility to do that, because if they want them to provide the best of themselves at work, they need to be feeling good and be the best of themselves on the side, right? So I think it's, if you want to have efficient people, we need to have people that feel good. And so that's probably where I really try to work with my team, is to understand them, understand what is important for them and how we can combine that.
I think I really align with that. I think that is super important. What's coming to my mind is I started feeling that when I started my career, I had a manager that was for 6 months. It was my first internship. And this manager was like someone that I really looked up to. You know, she really cared about the team. She cared about me. She made me feel visible. All these things that now I translate. And I think after that, I had as a guiding light, let's say, for what leadership meant for me and what is important. Do you think you had someone like that in your life, like a good leader, or maybe not always a good, sometimes it's a bad experience, something that led you to think this is what's important?
I think so, and I think you have like good example and also bad example,
Yeah.
because it's also this is who I don't want to be, right?
Mm.
But and I think I wouldn't say there was one leader where I was like, this is the person I want to be. But I think again, you need to build your own leadership style, and you can pick up from different people, different traits, or different behaviors that you think it's important to you. But yeah, no, during my career, like there are a couple of people, and I also in the private life, right? It's not only professional.
Yeah.
I guess some people that like, oh, that's great what they do, and I want to do something similar.
So this makes me think of, do you have any advice that you can share? Because you've had all this experience with maybe good and bad leaders, who you want to imitate, who you don't want. Do you have any advice for people who are maybe starting their careers? What can you do to pass those bad experiences, let's say, learn from them and absorb from the good ones?
I guess is you need to speak up about what do you want to do, how you feel. I think that's important, because if you keep that for yourself, you're not going to have a great experience, or might not have a great experience. So I think you need to speak up about, and speak up means also, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. If you have something in mind, this is the person I am. Um, then I would probably say be curious, because I think being curious is a great thing. That means that you want to learn, that you want to understand, the environment you're living in, those kind of stuff. And I think it's also going out of your comfort zone. I think that's something essential. It's not easy, but when you do that, you sometimes have bad experience, but I'm sure you always have good stuff going out of your comfort zone. That makes sense.
Like you always earn something in
Exactly.
the end. So this makes me think about Australia. You went, so you mentioned that you started here, you became a senior associate, right? And then you decided that you wanted to do a secondment. So tell us about that. What sparked your curiosity? That's what it makes me think, because all the things you say is like linked to wanting to go outside the country you're in, have an experience outside of what you know. So tell us about that experience. How did you choose it? Why? How
Yeah.
was it?
So basically, after like 3 years and a half at PwC, I was like, okay, I know this environment. I want to see something else, but I still feel good at the company, so I don't want to quit. And the beauty is that PwC offers you, the opportunity to go abroad, right? So I didn't want to go in the US, so I was like hesitating with like Singapore, Australia, and then I started talking with people who went in those like destinations, and then the idea of the beach next to the office was pretty sexy, so I won't lie,
Yeah.
and so I basically applied for that. It went pretty quick, honestly. And then I think I got my visa, and 10 days later I was supposed to fly.
Wow.
Pretty quick, right? And when I was talking about being out of his comfort zone, it was really probably the most challenging experience. Took the plane alone, didn't know anyone, and then you arrived that country, and like English is not my first language. You're challenged by the language, you're challenged by everything.
Yeah.
But no, I think that has been an amazing experience overall. Work-wise, I learned a lot, but I think mostly I learned a lot about myself and about what I really like doing outside of work, like doing sports, being outside, those kind of things.
So is it the first time that you were living abroad? this experience?
It was the first time I was living abroad. I mean, I went to Erasmus, but outside of Europe, yes. And the first time I went outside of Europe was a couple of months earlier to your home country, Costa Rica. And then that was like my first like real experience going outside of Europe. So pretty challenging because it's pretty far.
And it's the first time you're visiting. You didn't visit before.
Exactly.
It's far away. And you have to get settled. It's, okay. So you said that you were finding yourself. I'm thinking about people who are doing this. And actually, in Luxembourg, we have a lot of people that come from other countries. So when you look back, is there anything that helped you in those moments? You arrive alone to a new country, new culture, new everything. Something that you think back that helped you?
I guess probably two things. One is I went with PwC, so at least you have one thing is you have
Stable.
a job, right? You have a job, you have a revenue, so that helps. And then at least you can meet people at the office to build your initial, group or socialize with some people. Yeah. Then I guess the second thing is, again, going out of your comfort zone, because if you don't know anyone, either you decide to stay in your corner, in your room, and you read, great, or you go out there and you talk to people, right? And you try it. Sometimes the people are annoying, but you keep talking to other people until you find, some people that with whom it clicks. So yeah, that's probably the two things. It's really, not be afraid to go to the unknown. And then obviously the company, which was the reassuring piece.
And to people coming to Luxembourg, because you've been living here for a while, you're from the region, right? Anything that you think could help someone settle in Luxembourg, or even, let's start with that. Anything that you would recommend to people coming to Luxembourg?
I think if you don't know anyone, I think it's essential. That somehow you get to know people. So, and I think there are different means to do that. But I think if you want to be fulfilled as an individual, you need to know people. So it could be either, to do some activities,
sports,
clubs, whatever, right? Clubs, or it's, I'm joining the Facebook group of, I don't know, the Italians in Luxembourg, something along those lines. But I think that's probably one of the best way. And it's so multicultural in Luxembourg that I think that you're going to meet a lot of people that have been exactly in your shoes and who are going to welcome you.
Yeah. And let's talk about PwC. So you've also done your entire career at PwC, and a lot of that at PwC Luxembourg. Can you share what has been something that led you to stay at PwC, do your career here, and maybe what can help people that are looking to start a career or to grow their career at PwC?
I think what made me stay at the beginning is really making friends when I started, because as I said, it's a continuity of university. You meet people coming from different places. We need to rebuild this social network, right? So because when you work with friends, you basically don't want to leave because you want to stay with your friends, right? And then there are a lot of what we call pop clubs. So you have different stuff. You have some sports, so you have pop football, pop paddle, pop squash, running, those kind of stuff. And so it's really, building a community around a common passion. In this case, like mostly sports. And that also, bond people and you want to stay. So I would say mainly that on more the social piece. And then obviously one of the things that made me stay is, like on the building, it's written entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
And I think at PwC, if you want to do something, again, you raise your voice and you say, look, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in some people aspect of the firm. Okay, you're going to be a buddy and you're going to help people coming in, to settle in the company, those kind of stuff. Or going to be a team leader and help, in development of people. If I want to do like something more methodology or more, you're going to be able to get involved into that. So I think it's how you can really tailor your career with what you like doing.
And talking about that tailoring, maybe you can share with us a bit more about how you've managed to lead your career, yourself. How have you applied this more in the work type? If you ever thought about the industry you wanted to work with, the type of client, something like that. How have you been guiding your own career?
So, I mean, when you start, you basically you land in an industry. So it's kind of luck or unluck, I don't know. So I studied in this asset management, wealth like management area. I pretty much did that during the first year, and then I was supposed to do the exactly same thing when I moved to Australia, but I landed in auditing forestry funds. So completely different. How do you value a forest? Quite funny. I went like to Borneo to visit a forest, for example. So it was quite funny. Anyway,
That's so different, right?
so
Like you wouldn't
different.
expect that at all.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so when I came back to Luxembourg, I was like, I can do a lot of different stuff now. So, you start, reaching out to people. And then I kind of kept doing what I was doing initially, but then I extended my portfolio with more what we call alternative fund or real asset funds. And so auditing like private equity companies and those kind of stuff. But it's really, okay, I want to do that. I'm talking to people who are doing those kind of assets or jobs. And basically you find opportunities and move with what you want to do in terms of pure audit. And then as I was saying before, if you want to do some stuff outside of audit, it's also about, talking to people, this is in this area, I think I can bring value. And then you always find something that suits you.
Have you done any type of projects like that recently that you can share, like outside of your...
So currently I have a role of what we call account driver. And so all the big clients that we have, basically there is a kind of a support team, which is making sure that we support the clients. So meaning internally, so it's coordination with all the teams. It's bringing, insight to the industry, to the clients. So meaning, you have a new law, you have like hot topics, you go to your clients, you explain that to them. You make sure that your client is happy. And then you have all the people side of things. It's how do we develop the team? How do we cope with the growth of the client? Those kind of stuff. So that's one of the example.
Okay. And do you have in mind something that you want to do next? We talk about all your learnings from the past. What is next for you? What do you look forward to learning, developing?
I think two things that I want to develop in the next couple of years. One is more on the people side, because it's something that I like. So, like every year we have that survey about, how people feel at PwC, what do they love, what should we improve, blah, blah, blah. So there are always a couple of topics that we need to improve. So that's something I want to get involved and think how we can improve some of the stuff at PwC. On more the people side. And then more on the market side, something I'm not doing, but I want to do is going to conferences, more going out and talking to clients, talking about the industry. Really being, like talking and going to conferences. That's something I would like to do.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have a couple of fire questions so I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you just tell us the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay? So what is one word your team would use to describe you?
Open-minded.
Nice. What is the career advice you live by?
Curiosity. Be curious.
And what is the moment that you felt most proud at PwC?
Probably when I became director.
Yeah? Okay. You want to tell us a bit about that? How did it feel?
I guess because it's the first time in your career that you go really to a full promotion process. So, you need to prepare a case. You need to, defend your case in front of a jury. and it's really the first promotion, which is, I would say, less automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a long process. It's a lot of preparation, and when you get the results, you kind of
celebrate.
proud. Yeah, I celebrated, and you're proud. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julien. It was such a pleasure to have you. And I think all your insights are definitely going to help people who are listening, maybe inside or outside. They're definitely going to be inspired by you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.